Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we are back on the website of Brompton's auctioneers in the UK, and we're having a look at their sale, which is due to finish tomorrow actually. So it's been running since the 10th of March and due to finish tomorrow, which will be the 22nd of March 2021. So bit late kind of looking at this catalogue just because I've been a bit busy, but this way we might get a little bit of an indication as to what the instruments which people are kind of interested in, see if there's any bids. Obviously most of the bidding happens on the last day or even in the last kind of hours, last 10 minutes, but sometimes you can see if there's interest on things beforehand. So without further ado, let's have a look at the sale catalogue and just see what's going on. I think we've got quite a few lots actually. Let's just quickly go down. Yeah, we're on like 265. So mainly bows and stringed instruments, a few other kind of things here and there. Let's go to the grid and let's have a quick look. So basically you can see here from the specs, buyer's premium is 20%. And 5% of the hammer price. So you can, if you're the first person to bid and you end up winning, you can save a couple of percent there. So it's always worth kind of looking at this. So seeing what the final price will be. Look at all of the information. Once again, you can kind of look at all the details on the website. It's pretty simple, just sign up, register, put in your bank details. It'll probably take like £1 or something like that from you just to see, but it's got everything here, bid calculator, whole load of things in the Brompton's website. I mean, they're well established, very professional, so you'll see everything here. So let's go through this fairly quickly so we're not waiting forever. So lot 1, a fine French silver mounted violin by Pierre Simon, so estimate 12 to 18,000. Round stick, the later French frog and button. It's unstamped. A certificate by Peter Oxley is available to purchase. Weight 62 grams. Stick good with a little use and wear to the crown of the head. Handle with wear and one small split above the mortise, frog and button. So you can see the pictures here. Pretty standard so far. So that's kind of seems to be no bids on that. So that's a fairly high-end bow. So let's go to the next lot. An English silver-mounted violin bow by James Tubbs. So fine English bow maker there. 2 bids. Currently on 3,000. Round stick, faintly stamped. Jazz Tubbs, weight 64 grams. Condition, with the exception of a small area of damage to the underside of the head and somewhere to the handle, the stick appears to be in very good condition throughout. Frog, very good with some minor superficial indentations to the audience side. Button, very good. So you can have a quick look here. But this is kind of the pictures that we're getting. So the first bit of the sale is bows. French silver-mounted violin bow by Louis Morison Pierre. Let's have a look at this. Octagonal stick, stamped Victor Fatigue, Paris. Sold with certificate of Gilles Chanceriel, Paris 2021. Weight 62 grams, very good throughout. One minuscule silver of wood, sliver of wood missing from a bottom mortise and moderate wear to the stamp. So there you go, it's got a certificate. Let's carry on. An interesting nickel mounted violin bow, possibly French. I think last time we did the Bromptons on this went on for a while. Weight 63 grams, with the exception of one repaired crack to the frog and a sliver of missing wood. The lower mortise condition appears to be very good throughout. An English silver mounted violin by Robert Taylor. No bids on that. Octagonal stick, weight 58 grams. Grain lift or similar to underside of head where it meets the body, but otherwise, with the exception of minor general wear, the bow appears to be in good condition throughout. Okay. Lot 7, a German nickel-mounted violin bow by Karl Hoffner. Condition report available upon request, and then we can move away from that. An English silver-mounted violin bow by W. E. Hill and Sons, probably by Sidney Fioman. 8 bids. The Hill bows very popular with players for their they're quite reliable, quite consistent. So they're quite popular. Round stick, probably Sidney Yeoman. Weight 60 grams. With the exception of one very small and seemingly cosmetic mark to the stick under the hair, approximately 2.5 inches from the head. The bow appears to be in excellent condition throughout. But yes, for the Hill bows always seem quite popular, so I suspect that will probably go up in value a bit beyond 3. I'm very curious. German silver mounted violin bow by Franz Winkler. No takers on that one so far. Pinned head, repaired crack to frog, general wear. Yep. Good silver mounted violin bow, probably a German. Keep going. German nickel mounted violin bow, possibly school of Bausch. Okay. Nickel mounted violin bow, possibly French. Let's see. French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazin. 2 bids on that, 2,000. It's quite interesting seeing the bids. Okay, it's got a stamped Caradus on the frog. Sold with certificate of Pierre Guillaume, Brussels, 2020. Stick appears to be in very good condition. Frog good. 2 minor repaired cracks. Later button. Yep. An English silver mounted violin bow, probably by John Dodd. Probably by. Round stick, weight 50 grams. Hill star lapping. Stick may have been thinned down at some point in its history. There's a small grain lift behind the head on the underside. Frog good, but with demi-cheval button, probably not original to the stick. Okay. Interesting head. And let's carry on. Silver mounted violin bow, probably by Etienne Pajot. 4 bids, 850. It's popular. Round stick, pinned head. Ooh, that's interesting. Well, that's pinned head with 2 grain lifts to dorsal side. Otherwise, stick good, frog good, though missing small slivers of ebony and 1 pearl eye. Button good, though missing pearl cap. Needs a bit of TLC. German silver mounted violin bow by Johann Christian Suess. 1 bid on that. We won't go into too much detail on every bow. A silver mounted violin bow, possibly French. Condition report available on request. That's fairly popular. German nickel mounted violin bow by Wilhelm August Frechner. Okay. A good silver mounted bow. Stamped Saransky Pal, Budapest. Bundle of bows, can go past that. Silver mounted violin bow, possibly Workshop of Bazaar. We see a lot of that, it's quite common. Nickel mounted violin bow, probably German. Looks like it needs a bit of attention there. Slightly interesting head. Okay. Right, violins. A violin attributed to Vincenzo Postiglione, Naples, circa 1890. Estimates 3 to 5. No bids. 20% buyer's premium only. Okay. Yep. Length of back 364. That's quite long. Condition report. See diagram. So we can have a look into that a bit more. There's some F-hole cracks. There's a crack there. Not a massive amount of information. To the next lot. A violin attributed to Leon Bernardel, Paris, 1911. No bids on that so far. Let's have a look. Length of back 357. Repair to table, ribs and back. Okay. A good violin attributed to Samuel Gilks. Labelled Samuel Gilks, London 1820. Length back 359. Repair to table and ribs. Okay. A German violin circa 1880. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it's got like a fake kind of a neck graft, it looks. And a Scottish violin by John Cuthbert, Dunbar, 1884. Length about 358. 3 bids. Oh, we got popular in the Scottish violins. Interesting back. I do wonder if that one has been in the sale before, possibly. An Italian violin by Vincenzo Cavani, Modena, 1963. Number of bids 1. Length back 357. Interesting. I do forget now if we've seen some of these before. The name sounds familiar. It does. An interesting violin, my favourite. Branded internally with the device of a double-headed eagle holding an arrow in its claws set with a circle above cat. Repair to table, ribs, back and scroll. Some post crack in table with patch. Okay, so that's interesting. Two six. There's a neck graft. Oh, someone's interested in it. 1 bid. And I think reserve is not met. An English violin circa 1865. No bids. Unlabelled, stamped T. Burt below the button. 357. That's quite nice. Yeah, quite like that. Quite like the colour of the varnish. It's quite red, but it's interesting. Starting bid. An interesting violin again. Labelled Antonius Thier, Lauten and Geigenmarker in Presburg, Anon 17. Length about 361. Repairs to front ribs and varnish. A violin, probably English, second half of 19th century, with an Italian label. Length about 365. That's pretty long. An interesting scroll, a little bit quirky. An Italian violin by Serafino Cassini, Florence 1906. 1 bid, reserve met 6,000. Sold with certificate of Claudio Arezio, Florence 2020. Nice back. Okay, C diagram. It's got the bell patch, isn't it? There, if it's been a bit weak. And there's the certificate. And to the next lot. A modern Italian violin by Franco Forcellini, Mantua, 1997. 2 bids. Bearing the maker's label, signed and dated 1977, branded internally, sold with certificate of the maker. Have a look at that. There you go. There's the certificate and guarantee for an Italian violin. Violin by Robert Frechner, Debrecen, 1927. 0 bids. Length back 359. Repairs to table, ribs and neck. And onwards we go. A violin attributed to and probably by Charles Bouthold, Paris, circa 1880. Okay. A French violin by Augustin Clodeau, Mircore, 1800. Needs a bit of repair there. One of the ribs. Edge requiring gluing. Okay. No bids so far on that one. A violin probably by J. Clausen, Svenborg, 1948. 2 bids. Nice back. Some worm damage to that one. A fine French violin, probably by Francois Louis Piquet, Paris, circa 1810. Another higher estimate instrument, 12 to 18,000. 1 bid of 10, not reserve not met. 357. Condition report available upon request. Yep. It just shows a few little cracks there. An interesting one. An Italian violin by Massimo Negroni, Cremona, 2013. No bids. Sold with certificate of the maker. Good condition. There you go. Next lot. A French violin by Paul Mongenot, Mircore, circa 1930. No bids. Length of back 360. Ooh, what have we done there? Okay. An Italian violin by Settimo Meloni. Labelled Settimo Meloni. Sold a certificate of Luigi Accoli and Flavio Guerrieri, Firenze. Okay. There you go. An Italian violin. A German violin by Alban Paulus, Markneukirchen, circa 1920. An interesting violin, Germany or Austria, circa 1820. Labelled Carlo Antonio Testore. Length of back 357, repairs to table, ribs, back and pegbox. Dendro from Peter Ratcliffe, the man for Dendro in the UK, at least, if not everywhere else in the world. Significant dates of 769 on the bass side and 810 on the treble side. It's had some cheek repairs there. That's the graft. No bids on that one so far. A violin, probably German, circa 1870. Length of back 359. Damage to front fingerboard, separated from neck. An Italian violin by Massimo Negroni, Cremona, 2020. So this is a new one. Pretty new. Sold a certificate of the maker. Good condition. Just have a quick look at the back there. Yep. Okay. An Italian violin by Emmanuel Cottony, Pistoria, 2020. Number of bids 1. Sold with a certificate of Gabriele Natali. Let's have a quick look at that, just to see. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, there's quite a difference in colour there, isn't there, on the yeah, I mean, it definitely appears to be the same instrument, but the colour difference between this picture and that picture is quite wild. So that's interesting. Not sure what's going on there. Curious. A good German violin by Otto Wiener, Mitterwald, 1929. One bid. A German violin, circa 1910. A violin, possibly German, circa 1900. Okay. A German violin, circa 1900 again. I think let's just go past this. An Italian violin by Alessandro Milani, Novara, 2013. Sold a certificate of the maker. It's a lot of Italian violins in this auction, with certificates from the maker, perhaps even submitted by the makers themselves to the auction. Who knows? An interesting violin, last quarter of the 18th century. Labelled Vincenzo Rugia, Detto il Per in Cremona, 1731. Length of back 358. Prepares to table, ribs and back. Samples crack in table, but it is patched. It has been patched. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Interesting enough. An Italian violin by Franco Forcellini, Mantua, 1996. 2 bids on that. Sold with certificate of the maker. So yeah, got a few Italian instruments. German violin by Louis Lowendahl, Berlin, circa 1900. German violin, circa 1890. Let's go past to save some time. French violin by Paul Bailey, Paris, 1889. 5 bids on that as popular. 356 repairs to table. According to the records of Berlin Opera House, this was last part of the orchestra circa 1930. Interesting. The back has the registration of the Berlin Opera House. Interesting. Good to know. An Italian violin by Mario Garda, Mantua, 1970. Number of bids 2. Sold with certificate of the maker. Good condition. Okay. A modern Italian violin by Alessandro Gambarin, Mantua, 2020. Sold a certificate of the maker. I hadn't realised actually how many Italian violins are in this auction, or kind of more modern Italian violins. There really are quite a lot. An English violin by Lewis Milton, Bedford, 1926. No bids. Length back 355. Let's have a quick look at that. I do like the English violins. An interesting violin, possibly Italian. Wow, 28 bids on that. Current bid 2,410. Unlabelled, length back 358. Repaired wind cracks to the bottom section, treble base F holes. Otherwise, table appears to be good. Ribs good. Some areas possible minor damage. Repaired. One crack to back, treble side, just below and a little to the left of the button. Peg holes in scroll bushed. So some people must see something in this because it's popular. So someone's interested in this, so that's curious. Well, good to know. A German violin, workshop at Alfred Moritz, Dresden, 1888. A violin probably by Louis Jolly, Mircore, 1900. An Italian violin by Riccardo Bergonzi, Cremona, 1987. 3 bids on that. Certificate of the maker, again. Yes, once again, it's curious, isn't it? The discrepancy here between the pictures on the certificate and then the actual colour of the instrument. So it just shows you the lighting can really change the colour of the varnish there. An Italian violin by Luigi Occoli, Pistoria, 2020. They should have just called this the Brompton's Italian Violin Auction, because there's so many of them. Sold with certificate of maker. Well, that is a surprise. Yeah, I like the colour of the varnish a bit more than some of the other ones so far. Lovely. Oh, a Spanish violin by Fernando Sola Gonzalez, Madrid, 1971. You don't see that many Spanish instruments. Length back 358. Repairs to table. Looks interesting, if not fairly plain. It's quite plain on the top. Yep, interesting. Good French violin, workshop of Jérôme Thionville-Lamy, Mircore, 1890. We've seen a lot of these. A French violin, circa 1910. 1 bid. A violin, my favourite. 1 bid. Unlabelled. Good condition. Violin by Jan Pawlikowski, Krakow, 2010. Sold with certificate of the maker. There you go. A Polish violin. An Italian violin by the Fratelli Cerleto, Naples, 2010. Labelled Fratelli Cerleto. Okay, so with certificate of the makers. Okay. Yeah. Did we just go past one? No. A violin, circa 1850. Length of backs 362. It's quite long. Repairs to big box. Sold with a letter from Stefano Conio, Cremona. Okay. Get a letter there. Why not? A German violin attributed to and probably by Sempertus Nigel, Fusen, circa 1780. There you go. Labelled. Attributed to. Length of back 356. Repairs to table, ribs back and paperbox. Sound post crack in back with patch. Interesting. So recently I've seen some conversations about this instrument online and saying that there's potentially 2 makers of that time which had this name, so it's a bit difficult to really understand if there were actually 2 makers and which instruments they made. I have seen examples of some of instruments by this maker, and the F holes are very different to this, or very different in general. I am not really knowledgeable enough to know what the deal is with potentially 2 makers with the same name, or if one is correct and the other one's not. But obviously there's a little bit of doubt here, and it's certainly different to some known examples of one of these makers, if there are indeed 2. So, but it definitely looks like it has some age to it. But another one of these mysteries. Half-size French violin, Mircore. A violin with an Italian label. Length back 359. No bids on that. Yeah. An Italian violin, possibly circle of Postacchini, second half of the 19th century. labelled Steiner. Length back 363. Repairs to table. Sunburst crack in table. Worm damage in rib. It's very kind of narrow, small scroll. No takers so far. An Italian violin, probably by Silvio Daniele Verona, first half of the 20th century. Labelled Fernando Sacconi, probably length about 358. Let's have a look. Yeah, it seems quite narrow almost, but interesting nevertheless. 5 bids on that, so there's some interest. A good violin, probably German. German violin, Dresden, circa 1910. A violin, possibly German, circa 1920. 3/4 violin. A good and interesting violin attributed to Augusto Polastri, Bologna, 1925. 3 bids on that. Length about 357. Repairs to table and varnish. Let's have a quick look. Yep. And the show must go on. An Italian violin by Guido Alberini, Cremona, 1987. No bids on that so far. An Italian violin attributed to and probably by Mario Gherardi, Trieste, 1960. Length about 359. Really is absolutely full of Italian violins, this auction. It's yeah, actually quite surprised. A French violin, Milton, 1890. A violin. Let's see. Unlabeled, length back. Looks pretty average. German violin, circa 1920. German violin, 1920. A French silver-mounted viola bow by Louis Morizon Frères. Significant wear to the top of the stick above the head. Yeah, okay, no bids on that so far. German gold and tortoiseshell mounted viola bow attributed to Albert Nürnberger. 8 bids on that, as popular. Looks very fancy. Yeah, it comes under CITES tortoiseshell. It's not an easy thing to ship around. Weight 68, good throughout. Interesting. Yeah, not easy thing to fly with either, tortoiseshell, so interesting. A German silver-mounted viola bow by Otto Durschmidt. Yeah, tortoiseshell. Probably best avoided or get a different frog made for it. An English silver-mounted viola bow by John Stagg. 2 bids on that. Interesting inlay there on the frog. Looks nice. German silver-mounted viola bow, probably by Karl Müller. German nickel-mounted violin or viola bow by Franz Sadner. A fine French viola by Auguste Sebastien Bernardel. Paris, circa 1840. No bids on that. See a diagram. Nice back. So, let's see. Couple of cracks there. Crack at the bottom. Couple there. Corners. Yeah. Yep. Still not very exciting condition diagrams. French viola by Joseph Nicolas Leclerc, Paris, circa 1775. 1 bid on that. Sold with certificate of Bernard Millant, Paris, 2012. Probably come through the auctions in Paris. There you go. It's had a few cracks. Big crack on the back there. There's a bit of a stick of it there. Let's see. Can we see that? You can see it's been quite well dealt with. That crack, that's quite interesting. Back. An Italian Viola by Lorenzo Guardo, 2007. Very red, or very orange even. There you go. If you're a viola player, it's a chance to get a Italian viola. It's quite a larger one. A viola. One bid. A good English viola, circa 1970, unlabelled. The viola bears a label indicating that a tonal adjustment was carried out by Charles Howe of Nottingham, dated 1993. Interesting, 2 bids, so some people are interested in that. It's quite a nice back, a nice quilt to it. Yeah, nice wood. A contemporary Italian viola by Daniele Ranieri, Rome, 2019. 0 bids on that. Good condition. Sold with the leather-bound folio certificate of the maker, Rome, 2019. Very fancy. An Italian viola by Angelo Bontempo, Venice, 1965. 0 bids. Repairs to table and ribs. A viola, 0 bids, with an Italian label. Let's have a quick look at that again. Interesting, we're learning. A German viola by Eugen Meinl, Marknenkirchen, 2 bids on that one. It is interesting to see the early bids on things. Obviously, as you say, auction finishes tomorrow, so anything else could happen in that time. German viola, circa 1920. Quite a few violas actually in this auction, so good for all you viola players. An Italian viola by Alfredo Gianotti, Milan, 1974. It's a high starting one. Good condition. Very fancy back there. And scroll. No bids so far though. A good and interesting French viola, probably Paris, first half of the 18th century. Unlabelled, 0 bids. Signpost cracking table, but it has been patched. Yeah, that's quite nice. An interesting viola attributed to Eleuterio Leonardi Spoleto, 1920. 0 bids on that one. Yeah, this is quite smaller viola. An English viola by J.D. Nicholson, Bebington, 2012. 1 bid. Okay. A viola by Niccolo Bianchi, Genoa and Paris, 1855. Okay. 3 bids on that, so that's another popular one. Length of back 372. That is quite small actually. That's a very small viola. 372. The viola is in exceptional state of preservation and retains the original neck and fingerboard. There you go. That will explain the interest in it. An English viola by Charles Boulanger, London, circa 1880. Labelled by special appointment to His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. Sold a certificate of J&A Beer, London, 1950. Sounds post cracking table and back. There you go. Charles Boulanger, a Frenchman who worked in London about 1880. A contemporary Italian viola by Lorenzo F. Guardo, 2006. Guardo is back with another viola, very bright. I'm pretty sure that these were in the last sale, just because I remember commenting that they're so bright. I'm always blinded by them. Kind of coming round to it though. I'm starting to like it more. A German viola by Christian Benker, Ruben Ruth, 1988. An Italian viola, workshop of Ferdinando Garimberti, probably by Vittorio Formaggio, Milan, 1981. Bid. Length about 45, with the exception of small areas of very minor superficial wear. Use and age, the viola appears to be in excellent condition throughout. How wonderful. An English viola by Frederick Daniel Mahoney, London, 1937. No takers so far. Quite a light coloured varnish, quite pleasant, quite nice wood. Yeah, I like the colour of that varnish, is nice. An English viola by Paul Ayres, Manchester, 1986. One bid. Interesting on the F holes there. They're quite curious. A Scottish viola by Alexander Youngson, Glasgow, 1969. Repairs to table. Yeah, there really is a good selection of violas here. I wonder if there's going to be many cellos. A viola, probably German, circa 1880. No takers on that one. A French silver-mounted cello bow, probably by Auguste Husson. So the cellos must be coming up soon. So a little bit of wear there. Okay. An English silver-mounted cello bow by Sidney Yeoman for W.E. Hills and Sons. No bids on that. Estimate 1 to 1500. Round stick, pin head. The head is pinned, but apart from this and somewhere to stick area of the sun projection and thumb grips, the stick and frog appear to be in good condition. Okay, and you can see where the head has been cracked, and you can see that that is the pin there. Interesting. I was wondering why that was quite a low estimate, but that explains it. A German silver mounted cello bow by H.R. Frechner. Two bids on that. An interesting silver mounted cello bow, possibly French after Viome. The head of the bow is spliced, but otherwise the stick is good. Frog also good, though missing one pearl eye, some minor wear to handle. Interesting. 4 bids on that. German nickel and bone mounted cello bow. A German silver mounted cello bow by a member of the Knopf family. 0 bids on that so far. Significant new wood in the head. The bottom 3.5mm has been replaced on the audience side. Okay. I don't think that that's interesting, because I think we're seeing the players side here, so we're not actually seeing that audience side, I think. It would be interesting to see a picture of that. A nickel mounted cello bow attributed to and possibly by Carl Wilhelm Knopf. And decorated button. I think some of the Knopf family ones have like decoration all the way here along the in front of the frogs and funky buttons, depending though. German golden ebony mounted cello bow by Gerhard Penzel. 0 bids on that. Very good throughout. Wonderful. It's quite sharp. Nice. A silver mounted cello bow made for Arthur Edward Smith. 5 bids on that. Very good condition. An English Dragonetti style bass bow, probably by Edward Tubbs. 7 bids on that. Yep. Very interesting. Silver mounted French style bass bow, attributed to Arthur Vigneron. I've had a look at a Vigneron violin bow recently. That's very nice. Round stick. 3 minor repaired cracks. A German style nickel mounted bass bow by Konrad Gotz. A German nickel mounted French style bass bow by George Werner. The ex Vittorio Chiacanti, an Italian cello by Riccardo Bergonzi, Cremona, 1991. 3 bids. Sold with certificate of the maker. There's a lot of information here. There's the certificate. Some other stuff. Good condition. Okay. A good English cello by Thomas Dodd, London, circa 1790. 0 bids on this. Original label. The shoulders of Gamba form. Cello retains its original neck and boxwood pegs. Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? It's an interesting shape for a cello. Yep, so let's carry on. Swiss cello by Eugenio Tenucci, Zurich, 1956. 3 bids on that. With the exception of one reasonably crack to the table, treble side of the bottom saddle, some minor cosmetic wear, otherwise in good condition. It's got the old fingerboard with the Romberg on that most people want to get rid of. A good and interesting cello after Testore. 3 bids on that. See diagram. That's an interesting scroll. Okay, looks like it's had some work there. I don't know if that's trying to indicate that it's been. Looks like it's been enlarged, potentially. I think that's what it's trying to say. A modern cello. A fine small Italian cello by Giuseppe Dolente, Trieste, circa 1850. A few cracks on that. A cello circa 1900. Varnish possibly later. A contemporary cello attributed to Daniele Di Carlo, Milan, 1998. 4 bids on that. Yep. A good English cello by Thomas Kennedy, London, 1833. 0 bids on that. Unlabelled, but inscribed Thomas Kennedy. Quite nice, these Kennedy cellos. Yep. It's had a few repairs. No interest so far. An Italian cello attributed to and possibly by Francesco di Merzio Chetti, circa 1830. 0 bids. Table 4 pieces. Let's see if we can. Yep, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm curious. Open. An open scroll. Oh, interesting. Mark on back of some posterior could be a scratch or very fine crack. That's had a lot of repairs, but then I guess for the age that would make sense. A cello, probably German, circa 1880. Interesting kind of eye to the scroll there. Ah, something different. An Italian mandolin by Joseph de Maria, Naples, 1748. No bids. Fluted back, fingerboard, headstock, sound hole, decorated scrolling mother of pearl inlays. Condition report available on request. It's like kind of tortoiseshell there. One of the pegs is broken. Needs a little bit of attention. Nice enough, not the finest example I've seen, but it looks nice. Good to see a fine mandolin. Italian mandolin, school of Emverga, Rome, first half of the 20th century. Fluted back, Santo unlabeled. Yeah, that's a horrible repair there on that soundboard. Okay. A book. Okay. One bit. Fagnola. Luthiere Piemontese. You can get a condition report on the book. Excellent. Another book. Treasures of French Lutherie. Bid on that. Bid on Villaume. A book on Scarabotto. Another book on Guadagnini. Standard, the Universal Dictionary, we see it all the time. 4 books about violins. Guitar, an American carved Archtop L5 model guitar by Gibson, circa 1940. If someone's interested, there's a bid. All parts original. Pick guard, serial number. Sold with original fitted hard case. Nice flame on the neck. Yeah, looks nice. Nice example. Italian Quinton by Giorgio Corsini, Rome, 1956. No bids. Lionhead finial. Not sure how popular quintons are. It looks interesting enough. A German double bass, circa 1900. One bid. A silver-mounted violin bow, possibly by John Dodd. So on some more bows here. 0 bids on this. John Dodd, another fine English maker. It's got that kind of square, kind of trapezoid kind of looking shape that he usually has. A French nickel-mounted violin bow by Louis Morizon. 3 bids on that. And there is a certificate, a Raffin certificate of Paris, probably from the auctions. So there you go. And a French silver-mounted violin bow by C.N. Bazin. I always get caught out. Their C's look like G's on here for some reason. Stamp transfers of France. Head is being retouched or repaired and is covered in thick varnish. It's therefore impossible to make a thorough investigation. Frog probably later. 3 bids, I think. They're still interested. A French nickel and ivory mounted violin bow, possibly school of Pajot. It's got some fancy stuff going on in there. Not to my taste, but CITES there, I think, because it's probably because of the ivory. Also difficult to ship that around. A German silver mounted violin bow. Unstamped. A German nickel mounted violin bow. An interesting nickel mounted violin bow, possibly French. A German silver mounted violin bow. Stamped Martin, 61 grams. Stick good, frog good with 1 crack, mechanism frozen with rust. It's going to need a bit of TLC, but it's silver mounted, so could be a good opportunity for someone. A German nickel mounted and engraved violin bow. Okay. German nickel mounted violin bow by Otto Derschmidt. A French nickel mounted violin bow, probably Mirko. Sold with an additional nickel mounted violin bow, stamped Sarasat Maitre. Okay. A German nickel mounted violin bow, possibly Circle of not. Okay. Silver mounted violin bow. One bid on that. Silver mounted violin bow, possibly English. Reserve not met. Round strick, the later nickel button, unstamped. A French nickel mounted violin bow, School of Grand Adam. Sold with certificate of Raffen. German silver mounted violin bow by Albert Nürnberger. No bids on that one so far. A French silver mounted violin bow by Louis Bazar. 3 bids on that. Silver mounted violin bow, probably by Bausch. An interesting nickel mounted violin bow, probably German, with a hole in it. Frog includes an aperture, a feature possibly implemented to assist with bow hold. Interesting. A silver mounted violin bow, probably German. 1 bid. A contemporary silver mounted violin bow. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Nicolas Maire with a Raffin certificate. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Nicolas Malin with a Raffin certificate. German silver mounted violin bow by Otto Derschmidt. And a silver mounted violin bow. 3 bids on that. An interesting violin bow, possibly workshop of Pacat. The open trench frog. CITES on that. The ivory button. A good German nickel mounted violin bow. Unstamped. A German nickel mounted violin bow. 1 bid. German nickel and bone mounted violin bow. It's a bit wonky. A violin nickel mounted violin bow, workshop of Charles Nicholas Bazar. That's an interesting head. 5 on that. German nickel mounted violin bow, workshop of Ludwig Bausch. So quite a few bows here. Let's see, next one. Ooh, we're on to violins again. A violin attributed to Giuseppe Di Ciato, Naples, second half of 19th century. 0 bids. Indistinctly labelled. Length back 354. Repairs to table ribs, peg box, sound post cracking table, but it is patched. Interesting. Let's go. Next lot. An Italian violin, probably Marcia. Circa 1800. 1 bid. Someone is interested. Labelled Postacchini. Length of back 356. Repaired to table ribs, back and scroll. Peter Ratcliffe Dendro on that. Latest ring date 1787. Okay. Yep. An Italian violin by Raphael Callas. Naples, circa 1920. 0 bids so far. Repairs to table ribs and pegboards, worm damage to ribs, soundpost crack in ribs. Oh, soundpost crack in ribs with patch. I think it means in soundpost crack in table or back with patch. That's just a bit of a typo. An interesting violin, probably Vienna, circa 1820. No bids on that. Length back 354. Repairs to ribs and tables. So an Austrian violin. An English violin by J.D. Nicholson, Bevington, 1991. 1 bid on that. Length of back 350. Okay. An interesting violin after Guadagnini. 2 bids on that, 6,500. Labelled Guadagnini. I guess people drawn to that. Bargain Guadagnini type instrument, I suppose. A German violin, probably by Sebastian Kloss, second hand of the 18th century. 0 bids. 354 back. So, had a bit of a hard life. It's blind in one eye. Interesting colour varnish. A good Scottish violin by Jacob Brownlee, Glasgow, 1887. 2 bids. It's popular. Length of back 357. Repairs 2 table. It's a good violin, as they say, so people are interested. French violin, workshop of Lambert Humbert, Mircourt, 1901. German violin, possibly by Ernst Heinrich Roth. No bids on that. A French violin by Breton Brevet, 1890. 1 bid. A German violin, circa 1900. A 3/4 size German violin by Roderick Paysold. An interesting Italian violin, circa 1800. 1 bid, 8,000. Story-only label, length back 355. Interesting. An Italian violin by Cesare Topetti, Todi, 2006. No bids on that. Repairs to table. Curious. Fine German violin, school of Hornsteiner, Mittenwald, the first half of 19th century. 0 bids on that. Repairs to table and ribs. Interesting scroll. And an interesting violin, second half of 19th century. 2 bids on that. Some people are interested. Strad label. A French violin, circa 1900. A violin, probably German, circa 1910. An Italian violin, probably by Pietro Novelli, Venice, 1790. 0 bids, bearing an original label. Length back 358. See diagram. The violin retains its original neck varnish, possibly later. The violin is similar to an example dated 1812, illustrated in the Cosio archive. It does look quite bright, the varnish, for an instrument of that age. Slightly curious. Yeah, could be interesting for someone. That's some interesting repairs there. So, an Italian violin by Abele Naldi, Milan, 1979. Manuscript label, no bids so far. Interesting back. Repairs to peg box. A French violin, workshop of Lebert Humbert, Mircourt, 1900. 1 bid on that. Half-size French violin, Mircourt. Interesting quarter-size violin, possibly English, circa 1850. 3 bids on that. Violin is sold with semi-fitted hard case, possibly part of the instrument. Fractional sized bow. Interesting. Half-size German violin, Mittenwald, 1890s. An Italian violin by Dante and Alfredo Guastalla, Reggio Emilia, 1925. 1 bid on that. Length back 359. See diagram. Really an amazing amount of Italian violins of a lot of modern ones. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, second half of 18th century. One bid on that. Length of back 353, repaired to ribs and peg box. Possibly later back. Dendro report of Peter Radcliffe is available for purchase. Detailed latest date 1724 on the bass side and 1741 on the treble side. Interesting. Next. A good German violin attributed to and probably by Fritz Arnold Bruckner, Magdeburg, 1927. Back 360. A French violin circa 1900. An English violin by John King Monk, Lewisham, 1910. Length back 355. Repair to peg box. So it looks quite narrow in some ways. Interesting. That's curious. Okay. It's very red. A German violin, circa 1900. One bid on that. 3/4 violin, probably German. Missing the table. Sold with 2 additional 3/4 violins. No bids on that. An Italian violin by Alfredo Contino, Naples, 1921. One bid, 10,000, bearing the original label, 1921. Length back 357. There you go. We can have a quick look at this. This is a long video. I think we're getting towards the end of this. Can't even remember how many items there were now. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, first half of 19th century. 2 bids, labelled Gio and Francesco Fratelli. Length back 352, repairs to table ribbon about worm damage, sound post crack in table, which is possibly not patched. So that's some work that needs to be done by someone. Okay. An interesting violin, probably Scottish, circa 1850. Worm damage. That's an interesting, well, it's a very interesting peg box there, isn't it? Interesting. Scroll. Interesting back. That is a curiously odd, wow, that's a very, very odd scroll, isn't it? That's an oddity. A good German violin. 2 bids on that. Length back 358. Worm damage, sound post crack in back. You can see a sound post crack there. Interesting varnish. Okay. A German or Austrian violin, circa 1800. 0 bids on that. Repairs to table ribs, peg box, sound post crack table, and possibly in back. So it's got a lot of cracks for sure. A French violin, Mircor, circa 1890. An English violin, first half of the 19th century, labelled Nicholas Amatus, length back 356, repairs to table ribs, peg box, sound post crack table, sound post crack in back. It's all cracked. Yeah, it actually is. Look. It actually genuinely is pretty bad. Interesting. Yeah, so a lot of work on that, a lot of restoration. An Italian violin, Circle of Rivolta, first half of the 19th century. 1 bid on that of 9. Sold with certificate of Florian Leonhard, London, 2021. Well, very recent. Okay, that's had a lot of work done to it, hasn't it? That is a lot of work. An interesting violin, probably Naples, attributed to Raphael Antonio Galliano. Ooh, a Galliano. Possibly, probably. Length back 351. Condition report available upon request. Interesting. A violin attributed to and possibly by Paul Bailey Paris, 1902. No bids on that. A French violin by Emile Laurent, Bordeaux, 1919. No bids on that as yet. A French violin workshop of Lebert Humbert, Miracle, 1901. A few of those today. German violin, Glasgow workshop, Mark Nikerkin, 1910. A German violin, circa 1900. A violin, probably German, 1900. A violin by Camillo Mandelli da Calca, Buenos Aires, 1932. Wow, that's a high value one. Sold with certificate of Florian Leonhardt. No, you don't really see many of these. So that's interesting. Very interesting. That's a bit different. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, circa 1900. 0 bids. Italian label, length back 353. FL cracks in table, cracks in ribs. Okay. A violin, circa 1900. 0 bids. The French label. Okay. A violin, probably German, second half of the 19th century. 4 bids on that. 355, repair to table, ribs and peg box. And let's see. A German violin, workshop of Gleisel and Mosner, Mark Nikerkin, 1880. Good French violin by a member of the Barbe family, probably Telesphore, Amable, Miracle, 1890. .365 backs, quite large. An Argentinian violin by Luigi Rovati, Buenos Aires, 1925. That's interesting. 2 Argentinian violins in an auction. That's curious. Sold a certificate of Florian Leonhardt. So Florian Leonhardt has been buying up Argentinian violins or something like that. Length back 360. A remarkable state of preservation. Curious. Maybe it's been under someone's bed. A good French violin, probably Miracle, 1910. Half-size French violin, JTL workshop. German violin workshop of Louis Lowendahl, Berlin, 1916. An English violin by Emmanuel Whitmarsh, London, 1908. 0 bids on that. Length back 360, repaired to ribs. Yep. A French violin, circa 1890. A good French violin. Unlabelled. Let's just have a quick look. There's a lot of items in this auction. An English violin, Circle of Fulham Hudson, circa 1900. 5 bids on that. Galliano label. Violin has been slightly reduced in size and edgework has been replaced. Otherwise, a minor repairs to table and peg box. Okay, interesting. How curious. An interesting violin, first half of the 20th century. 0 bids. With a repair label. Okay. Oh, that's it. Yep, we're on to 265 listings there. Let's have a look at the list. I think that's correct. Yeah, so wow, like quite a lot of items in that auction. A lot of Italian violins, especially modern Italians. Yeah, very interesting indeed. An interesting auction, interesting information. A lot of information, pictures were good. Yeah, I think definitely check it out. You can see from that a lot of the items are finishing in the next 20 hours or so, because we did look at this one a little bit late. Yeah, so I think if I had to pick a favourite. I think I picked this in English violin circa 1865. You know that I like the English instruments. There's something I just like, I don't know, I like the kind of the look, the colour, the pegs. It's just got a bit of a glow, this this instrument, this English instrument. I quite like it. Quite like the back, like this kind of yellow and red combination between varnish colours, and yeah, I think that's it. So this has been another extremely long review, but it's been a good auction, good information, and some, yeah, not as many repeated lots on this auction as have previously been with Bromptons. A few things repeated, but yeah, all in all, not bad. So yeah, check out the auction. I'll provide a link, and until next time, thanks a lot for watching, and goodbye. Ciao. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.